So as you can see, this background today is slightly different because I'm recording at my home. So this is actually a paper that I received from one of the viewers. Okay, his teacher happens to have access to this paper. So he actually sent me the link through YouTube, and here it is. At the moment, the answers here is not confirmed because there's no marking scheme for me to refer to. And if you notice any mistake, feel free to leave it in the comment section and I will check through and reply to you accordingly. So without further ado, let's get started with the papers. So I actually looked through the paper already. The only weird question is the one at the last section. So the rest is pretty much identical, and this is what you're gonna expect for your upcoming examination. So without further ado, let's get started. So over here in question 1, okay, there are rate charges by the painters, plumber and electrician. So if the painter works for 7 hours, calculate the amount that Miss Sharma is expected to pay. So like what the question said, painters is paid 35 per hour. So 7 times 35 is how you get to the answer. Pretty straightforward. And it is expected to be 245. So moving on to the next question that we have here. Miss Sharma pays the plumber 252. Calculate how many hours the plumber works. So over here there's a fixed charges, which means initially, when the plumbers arrive, for sure they will charge you a $40 already. So whatever that's left will be the amount of hours that the plumbers work. So per hour is 26.5, and we don't know how much is the hours. That's why I set it as our X here maybe. And it will be amounting to 252. So to get to the results, you're expected to get rid of the 40 first. Okay, please remember the relationship is plus instead of multiply, what I've written down. So you're supposed to take 252 minus by 40, and then you will get your results by taking 252 minus 40 and divide it by 26.5. And the answers that you're looking at should be 8 hours in total. Okay, and for the last part here, okay, the electrician rates is slightly different. So they say 48 per hour for the first 2 hours, and then 32 per hours for the remaining part. So for sure, the electrician works for 2 hours and above, because the bills that Miss Sharma pays was about 224. So if let's say we take that as the base, which means we will have 48 times 2, okay? Then the remaining hours will be 32 per hours, and then since I used X already earlier, so I set the hours that the electrician works as our Y here. So it will add up to 224, 32Y will be 224 minus off with 48 times 2 is about $96, and your Y's results will be 224 minus 96 and divided by 32. Okay, you should get the hours as 4. So there's a trick to this question here. Please be reminded that for the electrician, they actually work 2 hours on top of the 4 hours that we gotten. 4 hours is the rate that they charge differently. So total hours here is actually 2 plus 4, and it should add up to 6 instead for the final answer. So these are the little tricks that the examiners set up, and see if you were to do it very quickly, then you might fall into the trap. So write down the ratio amount that Miss Palmer paid to the painters, plumbers, and the electrician. So for the painters here, we gotten it as 245. And for the plumbers, we paid 252, while for the electrician we paid 224. Since they wanted the lowest term, okay, let me give it a try. So after multiple attempts, I figure out that the answers that we should be getting will be by dividing everything by 7. So 7 is actually the common factor among all these numbers. So you should be getting 35 followed by 36 and 32. So I actually tested the value here manually. Okay, the other shortcut that you can use is to identify by taking 252 minus with 245. So you will get the difference here as 7. So I assume that they are related to 7. So I tested out 14s and 7. So I feel with 7 you get whole numbers on all 3 results. And the lowest term here is that they involve will be 35, 36 and 32. So that's how you get to the final answer over here. Moving on, we have a question that involves transformation. So the first thing that they wanted was triangle A to triangle B. So this thing here, it is obviously a rotation. But how much to be exact, I'm not sure yet. So I'll be testing it out over here. Okay. So for this question here, A to B, okay, for transformation, it's actually easier when you're doing it on a paper itself. So it's kind of hard to show you how did I identify this to be exact. But this is normally what I do. I choose 2 points that is connecting to each other. Okay, so this star that pointed at our A shapes will be reflected to point the image B at the star shapes over there. So to be exact, the answer will be somewhere around here. Okay, so I actually made this assumption. So now I'm gonna verify it by imagine that you have 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. While on the other hand, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. The rectangle is actually an indicator. So imagine this from this red rectangle here. After 90-degree rotation anti-clockwise, it will arrive at point B. So for this, if you were to write the terms down, okay, the full terminology here will be, it is a 90-degree anti-clockwise rotation. Okay. From the point, okay, that we identify, it is somewhere around -3 and 2. So this should be the results for it. So the next thing that they wanted was triangle A to triangle C. Okay, they wanted triangle A to triangle C. So for this question, first thing that I did was to connecting all the points. So the transformation should be this that they are looking for. Right. So let's say I draw this line first. Okay, and so as this one over here. And lastly, it will be this. Okay, but there's no need for that because we obviously has already identified the center of rotation. So the center of rotation is located at -2, -1 to be exact. Okay, and A to C basically was shrunken and it was inverted. So the scale factor that involves here will be -1/2. So some might wonder, why am I so sure that it is -1/2? So the negative represent it was inverted, and I know it was 2 because I took this. Okay, it was 4 columns and now it becomes 2. Obviously, it was be shrunken by half. So for this, okay, it is a enlargement, okay, from the point, I think -2, -1. Yep, -2, -1. Okay, with a scale factor of -1/2. So that's pretty much it for you to secure the 3 marks here. Next part, they want you to draw the triangle A after the translation of -5, -10. So for -5, -10 here basically tells you that everything was being shifted to the right hand side by 5 steps, shift to the left hand side by 5 steps, and downwards by 10 steps. So imagine this, I took this as the example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and the moment is somewhere around here, then it goes down by 10 steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it's somewhere around this, okay, as your first image. So I count the bars here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Going down by 8 steps. 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Somewhere around here, and the last point is 4 next to it. So this should be the results that they are looking for. Okay, connecting the points together, then you should be able to get your answers. So that's how you solve your part B here. Okay. And for part C, they are looking for drawing the triangle A after the reflection, where the line is located at y equals to 4. So the y equals to 4 line is somewhere around here. Okay. So what you have to do is that imagine that this is the line that they are referring to. Okay, y equals 4. So when you draw it out, it should look something like this. Going down by 8 steps. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This will be the corners. When you join everything up, this will be your final answer. So this is your C over here. So that's pretty much it for the transformation chapters related question here. So moving on, we have question 3 here, where it involves angles. So first thing first, they wanted you to identify angles A. So for this, A will be obviously 126 because of vertical translation, where this angle here will be equals to this at the opposite. On the other hand, for you to identify B, okay, you actually need the information that we gotten from here. Okay, this is what they are looking for. Okay, this angle will be equals to B. So with this, so this is what we call corresponding angle here, and to get to the results, you should be taking 180 minus 126. So the answer for it is about 54. Okay, 54 should be your final answer for B. So for part C, however, to get to the answer, I should be noticing this. This is actually our alternate angle, where it involves like a C shape, like. So the C will be transferred to here actually. So to identify C, all you need to do is take 180 minus 63. So you will get your answer as 117, I think. Yep, 117 will be your final answer for C here. So for this question, they pretty much use all the angles information. So corresponding angles, vertically opposite, as well as alternate angles. So you must familiarize yourself with all this concept, then you should be able to solve this question quite effectively. Moving on, we have part B here. Find the value of x given the geometrical reasons for each stage of your workings. So they want us to identify x value here. So R and S lie on a circle with diameters of PQ. Okay. And RQ is parallel to PS's. Okay. Calculate the angles information. So first of all, okay, so if I were you, I would be joining QS up together. Okay, that's the first step that I will be taking. Then I should be able to identify that this part here will be 58 and this part here is our x. So to find the value of x, okay, I'll be using cyclic quadrilateral. So I'll be taking 58 plus 58 plus 2x's, it will equals to 180. So I finish up the calculation first before writing the reasoning down. So 180 minus 58 minus 58. 2x's should be 64, while your x final results will be 64 divided by 2. You should be getting 32 as your final answers for it. Okay, so for each stage of your workings, so it's time to explain it. So first thing that I did was QS joins up and PQRS forms a quadrilateral. Side the circle. Okay. And I use what we call alternate angles. Alternate angles concept was being used. So I know that angle RPQ will be equals to angle SQP, while on the other hand, our x here will be RQP equals to our angle SPQ. So with this information, I now know that if I take when angle RQS added with RPS's, it will form a 180 degree because of cyclic quadrilateral concept. So these are the reasonings that we'll be writing down, and over here will be my supporting calculation. So that's how I will be solving part B. So if you notice anything wrong, feel free to leave it in the comment section, or you can share your thoughts over there. So the next part that we have here will be our question C. They want us to identify y's value. So this, okay, is actually using the angle at the center is half the value of angles at the circumference. So over here, to calculate the major arc of AOC, I'll be taking 360 minus 142. You should be getting 218 for this. Okay, so with this information, Y's value is actually half of it. So by taking half times 218, you get your answer as 109. Moving on to question 4. A shop gives 1,000 people a voucher. 28 people used their vouchers and the shop now gives each 16,500 people a vouchers. How many of these 16,500 people are expected to use their vouchers? So the probability here is out of 1,000 people that received the voucher, only 28 of them uses it. So this is the probability. So to get to the answer, all you need to do is take 16,500 times 28 over 1,000. Then you will get your answers as 462. So out of 16,500 people, only 462 is expected to use it. In the class activities, all 15 students wear hats, 7 wear reds, 6 wear greens, while 2 wears white. One of these students is picked at random. Calculate the probability that he wear a red. Okay, not a he actually. Just the student itself. So for this question, I'll be taking 7 over 15 as my final answer. So for part 2 here, this is actually a trap question. Okay, so please be reminded that whenever it involves people, okay, normally you have to minus the denominator and numerator if they are repeating on the same thing. So in our case, okay, so we have 2 reds. Okay, these are the assumptions that I'm making. Then we have 2 greens and also 2 whites. The reason why I list them all down is because all of them has 2 and above. So it is one of the part of the possible scenario that it could happen. So first of all, I will be keying 7 over 15 times 6 over 14. Both the numerator and denominator will decrease when I go through the second draw. While this on the other hand will be 6 over 15 times 5 over 14. Then the last part will be 2 over 15 times 1 over 14. So with all this being keyed in to the calculator, you should be able to get the answers of 37 over 105. Okay, this is actually a better version of the question because back then, when they are trying to test you this, they won't be giving you the probabilities answers. They just want you to know that when it involves human being, after each draw, you must automatically minus the denominator and the numerator depends on the condition. If they're repeating on the same thing, then yes, you must minus the numerator. Part number 3. 3 of the 15 students are picked at random. Find the probability that at least 3 students wear red hats. So for this, since they specify their surrounding on the red hats situation, so I will be listing down red. I have about 7 of them out of the 15. While not red, I have about 8 of them, I think. Yeah, 8 of them that is not red. So with this out of the way, okay, at least 2 of these students wear red. The assumption will go like this. Can be red, red, red. Can be red, not red, and red. Not red, red, red. Wow, the last one will be red, red, and not red. So these are the 4 possibilities here, and they all goes like this. So the relationship between all these variables should be adding up against each other. So 7 over 15 times 6 over 14 times 5 over 13. This is my first answer here. Adding up with the one at the bottom. Okay, you can either list them all down, or you can just put 3 at the front, because they are actually the same thing. So to avoid any confusion, I'll be writing 2 steps over here. Okay, either one of the solution here will be accepted. Okay, both is perfectly fine. So for the one on the left, I'll be listing down everything manually. So it depends on the scenario situation, I'll be putting different variables into it. So this is my first condition, followed by this, and the last one will be this. Okay, alternatively, your answers can be written as 3 of the same thing. Okay, I just pick one of them as a scenario here. Okay, if you look closely, the variables never change. So you can actually use the shortcut here if you wanted to. Okay, there's no forcing on which one to follow. Depends on your level of understanding, and pick the preferred route by yourself. So the answers that you should be getting will be 29/65. That's how you secure the 4 marks over here. Okay, so that's pretty much it for question 4. So in question 5, what we have here now is actually our trigonometry question. So obviously sine rule and cosine rule is involved here. So the first thing that they wanted was for us to identify the angle ADB. So ADB is actually located over here, and it's pretty obvious we are required to use cosine rule because all 3 sides has been given to us. So it's either you use the formula and shift it manually, but for those who is already familiarized with the formula, they will usually skip all the hassle and straight away write this thing down. So they write down ADB equals to 8.6 square plus 9.7 square minus 4.4 square divided by 2, 8.6, 9.7. So angle ADB, they're expecting you to write down cosine inverse, okay, with whatever that you have calculated. So this is what they're expecting you to do, 14869 over 16684. So cosine inverse of this, you should be getting your answers at 26.97, or in short, after correcting it to 1 decimal place like what required by the first page of the question, you should be getting 27 degree as your final answer. So that's how you get to it. Okay, so the next part, they wanted our triangle values of DC here. Okay, for your convenience, I'll be drawing this thing down. So over here, they gave us as 42, while the top will be 65. So this thing here, obviously, it is interior angle of a triangle. So 180 minus 65 minus 42, you should be getting your answer as 73. So with this 73 here, you actually may proceed with your calculation by writing sine 73 over 9.7, because it is at the opposite of it. And to fulfill the requirement of getting DCs, I'll be using 65 degree that was shown over there. Over DC. So our DC's value will actually be 9.7 times sine of 65 divided by sine of 73. So your final answer, it is expected to arrive at 9.19 centimeters. Okay, so this is how you solve part B. And to get the shortest distance from C to BD, okay, so what you're looking now is that if let's say today they want you to get the shortest distance, so there will be a 90 degree here. So we got our 42, we got our 9.19, We got the full things over here as 9.7. Our B as 65. C over here. So instead of looking at anywhere else, I'll be focusing on this side only. Reason being, this is the part where it has one of the information, which is a 9.19 that we gotten earlier. So this part is what they wanted from us. Okay, try to use a different color so that you can see. They wanted this in specific. So this is the unknown that they wanted. We got our 42 here. We got our 9.19. So obviously the unknown is actually the opposite of the 42 degree, while the 9.19 is actually the hypotenuse. So for those who involve opposite and hypotenuse, obviously we should use sine 42 degree equals to the unknown that they are looking for and our 9.19 over here. So to get to the results, all you need to do is take your 9.19, multiply with sine 42, and you should be able to get your results. 9.19 times sine 42. So your answers, you'll be looking at 6.15 after correcting it to 3 significant figures. So that's how you get to part C's results. Moving on, we have question 6. Okay, it's good to see the classic graphic quadratic question is back again. And they want you to use the grid of the graph and shows this. Alright, so the first thing, a plus b x squared over there. They want you to find the value of a and b with the information given. So first thing first, I just substitute the information in when x is 0, y is 4. This is from the first point over here. So by filling it up, okay, you should get your answers as a equals to 4. While on the other hand, when x is 1, your y is also 1 for this. We fill up the information. So the a we gotten earlier, it was 4 already. So 1 minus 4 equals to b. b should be -3 after the complete calculation. So that's how you identify your a and b here. And it's quite a new ways that they use to test this. Okay, but it's good. At least they're making changes to the question here. So next question, they wanted you to identify the graph equation of the tangent at the graph 0, -4. So for this, my answer might be inaccurate because the graph that they printed is like kind of crooked, because this is not the official release of the paper. So I gotten this paper early, so we get no choice but to form the equation of this. And they mention write down the equation of the tangent at y equals to 0, -4, a04. So there's no need to draw this actually. Your answer will be y equals to 4, that's all. Because for the tangent to be formed, it will be looking at somewhere around here. Okay, you should be able to see the rulers that I'm placing, and you will notice the graph is kind of imbalanced here. But yeah, you get the idea. The answer will be y equals to 4 because this is where the tangent line I drew will be located at. Okay, moving on to part 3, the equation of a tangent to the curve at the graph when x equals to -1 is y equals to 6x plus 7. Find the equation of tangent when it is 1. So for this, if you look closely, the graph is actually like a curve like this. So whatever that they are doing, okay, if let's say now you're looking at -1, look something like this. Okay, they will both have the same y-intercept. Okay, because the line of symmetry is located right at the center of it. So the intercept will be at 7. So when they ask for when x is 1, the only things that was changing here is the gradient. The gradient, you should write it as -6. And that's pretty much it. So you can get your answers right away without doing any calculation. It should be -6x plus 7 as your final answer for part 3. Okay, it might sound weird, but trying to digest what I've just said, and you should be able to get the answers. Part B, okay, pretty straightforward. All you need to do is to substitute -1, 0, and 1 into the formulas given at the top. So by keying this thing in, okay, make sure you get 2.25 for this. When it is 0, then you should be getting this 2.67. When it is 1, then you should be getting your answers as 3.5. So with all this information, you should be able to trace your results here now. So when it is -2, you will have 2 at your answer, so somewhere around here. Hope you guys can see this. Okay, maybe I put it in red instead then. Okay, should be clear enough. When it is -1.5, it will be 2.11. -1.5 at 2.11, so it should be somewhere around here. Okay, and when it is -1, it is 2.25. -1, 2.25. So 2.25 is somewhere around here, I think. And when it's -0.5, it will be 2.43. So continue to going up. When it is 0, it will be 2.67. 2.67. And it continues to go up at 0.5, then you arrive at 3, followed by 1 at 3.5 here. And lastly, it will be 1.5 and 4.33. So like I said, the graph is not perfect because it's not flat enough. But if I were to draw based on all these coordinates that were given to me, it would look something like this then. It is expected to look a bit odd because of the way that it was being scanned. So this is where I arrived at, and this should be the answer for part number 2 of part B. So part C, they wanted us to write down the points where the graph intersected. So in our case, if this is the graph that you drew, it should look somewhat similar to mine over here. So the first results that we are looking at will be -0.75. as well as this one over here that located somewhere around, I think 0.55 maybe. Yep, it should be 0.55. So the two results that I'm looking at based on the graph that I illustrated over here will be -0.75 and 0.55. So the answer is -0.75 and 0.55. So in part 2, Two solution is cubic terms. Okay, so for this is not the first time that they did this. All you need to do when you saw there's a cube there is to utilize the equation that we gotten earlier. It was 4 minus, I think, what's the answer that we gotten? Minus 3x squared. And now they gave us this over here. So the last thing they need to do is to compare these two things together. So I will be writing this thing down right at this part. So to make your calculation easier, first thing that I will do is to bring the 1 over here, 3x squared equals to 5 over 3 minus x's. So you should be getting 3x squared equals to 5, 3 minus x. So from here, all you need to do is be reminded that there's a denominator of 1 over here. When you cross multiply, you should be getting this. Okay, remember to multiply them accordingly. After the expansion, you should be getting 9 minus 3x's minus 9x squared plus 3x cubed equals to 5. So after the rearrangement, by taking 3x cubed to the front, followed by negative 9x squared, followed by negative 3x's plus 9 minus 5 equals to 0. So the final answers that we should be looking at will be this thing over here. And this will be your final answer arranged in the format that they wanted. So while A will be actually 3, while B will be negative 9, C will be negative 3, and our D will be 4. So this should be the answer if I didn't write anything wrongly. Okay, hopefully nothing is wrong. Moving on, we got our box and whisker diagram here to work out. Okay, we are now at page number 10. Write down the median marks. So be reminded that the median marks is actually the one at the center here. So the median mark is this red line over here for your reference. So the answer should be 70 for this, and work out the range. Range basically involve this, the two blue lines that are written down. So you should be taking 90 minus with 12, I think. Yeah, minus with 12. Then you should be getting your results as 78. So for your reference, each small box is representing about 2 value, because there's a 5 box here. 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 times 2 is 10. That's how I trace that. The blue lines over here will be 12. So Jai scored a marks in the test that was higher than the marks scored by 75% of the students. 75% is actually the upper quartile, which is this green line over here. So they wanted us to list down the possible results. So to make it safe, I will be taking the value right over the centers here. So it's somewhere around 88. Okay, they say possible. You can actually write 90 as well if you wanted to. Or anything between 87 to 90 basically could be accepted. Part number 4. Make one comparison between the distribution of marks in 2 tests. Alright, so make one comparison. So immediately the first thing that I noticed was that on average, everyone's results actually improved in the second test because the range was much smaller now. Okay, by taking the 97 minus 30, the range is now reduced to 67 instead of 72 that was shown earlier. So the comparison here that you can comment about will be the range is now lesser for the second test with a value of 67 compared to 72 earlier. Okay. Other comments that you can make will be the upper quartile, the 75% actually dropped. Okay. So there's lesser students that score 80 plus for now. So, but I think range should be easier components to comment on. So that's why I do it. And for part B, pretty straightforward. You need midpoint for this. So their respective midpoint will be 10, 25, 32, 37, and somewhere around 50. So by taking 10 times 4, adding up with 25 times 9, plus 32 times 20, plus 37 times 15, plus 50 times 2. Dividing everything by 50 plants, you should be getting your results as 31.2 as your mean height. Okay, that's for your part B here. Moving on to part C. Okay, so they say this is the results that they gave us. So when you solve frequency density, all you need to do is to take the frequency, divide by the class width. You can get the class width by taking 110 minus 100. So for this, we are looking at 100 divided by 850 divided by 10. You should get 5 centimeters. So this is actually 5, which means there's no skill factors involvement, and you can actually solve this question immediately. So we got our 7.6 over here. Okay, this is for us to calculate our x. So the class interval for that will be 115 minus 110. X, you should get a 5 at the denominator. So 7.2 times 5, you should be getting your answers as 36. So that's how you trace our x value here. So this is actually for your part 1's answer. And to complete the histogram, okay, we'll be taking 44 divided by 125 minus 115. So for this, we'll be looking at value of 4.4 centimeters. So 4.4 should be somewhere around here. And it will be until our 125. Drawing this over here. So this is our first histogram there, and for the next part of the answer, you'll be taking 51 divided by 140 minus 125. So for this, you should get your results as 3.4. So 3.4 is somewhere around here. So I illustrated them in a different color so that you can see the answers better. But it should look something like this. So that's how you complete your part 2's question. So this is pretty much it for part C of this question here. Moving on to question 8. Okay, what we have here is now evolving around circles, and maybe concepts about similarity will be involved just by looking at the question. So they gave us, show that the sector of the area is 41.7. Okay, so 41.7 is basically the whole thing. I will take 53 divided by 360, and since they involve areas calculation, it will be pi times our r square, which is 9.5 square. So let's double check and see if we can get the answers or not. And you should be getting your answers at 41.7 with no issue. So that's pretty much it for part A's calculation. The area of triangle AOB is 1/3 of the sector OXY. Okay, calculate your OA's information. Okay, interesting. So first of all, you will need 1/3 of it. Okay, this 1/3 is actually our scale factor. So by taking 41.7, okay, and you put 1/3, okay, and remember to square it because this is our scale factor here. So 41.7 after being multiplied with 1/3 square, you should be getting your answers as 139/30. So the 1/3, the fraction over here is actually representing the scale factor. And to get to the results, all you need to do is take the 41.7 multiply with 1/3 square, and you should be getting 139/30. The reason why I remain it as a fraction because I don't want to involve any premature roundings. So to get to the answers, you can now use 1/2 times OA times OB times sine 53, and it will be 139/30 over here. So OA and OB is basically the same because it will form an isosceles triangle. And you should be getting OA square. Okay, to simplify this, I wrote it as OA square, and I put 139/30 divided by 1/2 divided by sine 53. So OA itself will be square root of the entire thing. So you should be getting square root of 11.6031237. And you press square root of the answers. You should be getting your results as 3.4 centimeters for your OA's value. So for question 8, part B. Okay, so this time around, this sector is being joined to form the cone. So there's only one thing that they share, which is the PQ. The one at the bottom, it will now form this like a circle over here. Okay, this thing here is actually your original 2 pi r. So if you were to take the 60 degree over 360 times 2 times pi times 24, it will equals to the new 2 pi r over there. So with this, you can actually get rid of the 2 pi, and by taking 60 times 24 divided by 360, you will get your radius of the base of the cone over there as 4. So with this 4, you can actually proceed with your calculation of the volume already by taking 1/3 times pi times 4 square times h. So h is the only variable that is missing right now. So a couple of things that when you stick together all the information that we have now, we have the base as the 4, and we have our 24 earlier as the hypotenuse. So with this, our h will actually be square root of 24 square minus 4 square here. So this is actually based on our Pythagoras theorem. And by having this, you will get 4 square root 35 as your height of this cone. So by keying in 1/3 times pi times 4 square times 4 square root 35. You should get your results as 396.4994727. After correcting it to 3 significant figures, we will be looking at 396 centimeters cubed. So this is the unit of the answers that we gotten here. Moving on to the next question. We have question 9 over here. Okay, about 3 more questions to go, then we are done with this paper. So first of all, I noticed that 5a was repeating and you have a balance of 2p after extracting it out. As for the one at the back, I can extract b, negative b out from it, and you will get m plus 2p as the balance. After the rearrangement, you should be getting 5a minus b multiplied with m plus 2p as your final simplified answer. As for the one at the back, okay, please remember, if you take this thing out first, since they both have it, you will get 15k plus g minus 20. However, this is not the end because 15 and 20 is actually related. So if let's say I take out another 5 from it, then you will get your results as 3k plus g and a 4 over here. That's how you get to your final answer. As for the next part, it's kind of tricky for this. So part 3 here, you gotten your 4x squared minus y to the power of 4. Okay, first thing that you can do to this question here is to adjust the 4 into 2 to the power of 2. So with that out of the way, you can actually further adjust the y to the power of 4 into y squared to the power of 2. So with this, you now change the question into a squared minus b squared formation. So you can then further split them up into a plus b and a minus b. That's why you get your answers as 2x minus y squared multiplied with 2x plus y squared. So that's how you get to your final results here. For part B, however, you have to do the calculation manually. So first thing, I combine these two together first. So you should be getting this at the moment. So this is not the end because you still have one more brackets to further expand. Remember, your x squared will be now multiplied into the 3x and negative 4. So you actually get 3x cubed minus 4x squared negative 12x squared plus 16x. And the last one, negative 3 multiplied with 3x. So you get negative 9x plus 12. So your final answer will look something like this. So 3x cubed minus 16x squared plus 7x plus 12 will be your final answer. So a last question for 9C here. This is actually the comparison type of question where you have to write it as shown first. So you might wonder, how do I get to this? This is actually by taking a plus x plus a multiplied with x plus a, and you get the answers above. So what they actually want you to do is now you have to compare like your x squared will be corresponding to the x squared here. Your plus 2ax will be corresponding to 22x. Your b will be corresponding to a squared. So with this, 2ax equals to 22x. X and x will be cancelled. A will actually be 22 divided by 2. So a is actually 11. While on the other hand, your b equals to a squared. And since we gotten our a as 11, all you need to do now is to key in 11 squared and you get your answer as 121. So last two questions here. So question 10a, a box is a cuboid with a length of 45 centimeters, width of 30 centimeters, and height of 42 centimeters. So for question 10a, a box is a cuboid with a length of 45 cm, width of 30 cm, and height of 42 cm. The box is completely filled with 90.72 kg of sands. Calculate the density of this sands in kg over meter cube. So since kg has already been given, so there's nothing to do with the masses involved. So just key in 90.72. However, for the meter cubes over there, you must convert the 45, 30, and 42 into meters first. So you should be getting 0.45 multiplied with 0.3 multiplied with 0.42. So by keying all this into the calculator, you should be getting 1600 as your final answer. Okay, so now a bag contains 15,000 cm cube of sand. Some of the sand is used to fill a hole with a shape of cylinder, and the hole is 30 cm deep and has a radius of 10 centimeters. Calculate the percentage of sand from the bag that is used. Alright, so for this numerator should be the volume of the hole, while the denominator should be the volume of sand. And then to get it in percentage, remember to multiply it by 100. So you can get the volume of the hole by taking pi times 10 square times 30 divided by 15,000 centimeters cube and multiply by 100. That should be the way for you to get to the results here. By doing so, you will actually get 20 pi percent, which is somewhere around 62.8% after correcting it to 3 significant figures. For part C, the sand costs 98.9 per ton. This cost includes a tax of 15%. So this is actually the price after with a tax of 15%. Okay, so original amount times 115% equals to 98.9. So original price of it will be somewhere around $86. And the tax paid, it is by taking 98.9 minus 86. You will get your answers as 12.9. That's the tax to be paid for each tons of sand. Lastly, we have part D here. Raj buys some sands for 3,540 rupees. Calculate in dollars. So by taking 3,540 divided by 70.8, you should be getting your results as $50. Okay, pretty straightforward. And now we are looking at question 11. Gaia spent $48 to buy books that cost X dollars each. So for this expression here will be by taking 48 divided by X. Okay, reason being that's the money that you have, and the X is the amount, the cost per book. So by dividing it, you will get your answers as the numbers of books Gaia buy. Myra spent 60 to buy books that cost X plus $2 each. Okay, so the numbers that Gaia buy is actually more than Myra. So when I take them and minus off each other, you should get 4 at the other end. So for this, the easiest way is to make their denominator the same. So your 48 at the front will be multiplied with X plus 2, while your 60 at the back will be multiplied with X. So with this, you will get 48x minus 8 plus 48 times 2, somewhere around 96, minus 60x's equals to 4x, x plus 2. So with this out of the way, let's expand it truly. You will get your results as negative 12x plus 96 equals to 4x squared plus 8x. So we readjust them all into one side. 4x squared plus 20x's minus 96. Dividing everything by 4. You will get your answer as what they wanted here. So for those who wonders, how do I get to 20x? Negative will become positive while you shift this. So you become plus 12x. And for this 96 here, when you shift, it becomes negative 96. That's how you get to the final answer. So they want you to further factorize this. Okay, pretty straightforward. Okay, you can actually rely on your calculator to get this done. You will get your answer as x minus 3 and x plus 8. Okay, so equals to 0, so x will be 3 or x equals to negative 8. So obviously the price of the books cannot be negative. So we must take our x as 3. So the Myras, we spend $60. Okay, then I replace x with 3, then you will get your answers as 12, if not mistaken. 60 divided by 5 will be 12 books. That's how you get to Part D's answer. Moving on to the last question. Find the gradient of the curve when x equals to negative 2. So for this, when they're asking for gradient, okay, this is actually our new chapter here. By tracing the dy dx value, okay, basically you have to differentiate it, then you should be able to get the answer. So the differentiation process involves taking out the powers to the front, okay, and then after each of the plucking out process, make sure you minus the power by 1. So 3 times 2 times x to the power of 3 minus 1, followed by 1 times 7 times x to the power of 1 minus 1. So you might wonder, where did the 1 comes from? When there's no powers specified by the question, the default will always be 1. That's how I trace the 1 over there. And if there's no x, you can actually straight up ignore it. Okay, but for those who wanted to know what's happening, it is actually x to the power of 0 at the back. So 0 being plugged to the front, then you get your answers as 0 minus 1 here. So your dy dx is 6x squared minus 7 plus 0. So the 0 over there, you don't have to include it. However, this is not the final answer yet, because you're required to substitute the negative 2 into the position. So you should be getting 6 bracket negative 2 squared minus 7, and you get your answers as 17. For part B, calculate the length of this. Okay, all you need to do is to substitute into the formula. Pretty straightforward. Nothing much that is involved here. The formulas goes by x1 minus x2 square plus y1 minus y2 square. Whether you want to use x or y first, it doesn't really matter. If you want to use x2 minus x1 square bracket y2 minus y1 square, you also get the same answer anyway. So in our case, you'll be writing 7 minus negative 5 square. Then you will have 2 minus 8 square. So we are looking at 6 square root 5 to be exact. And the answer after correcting to 3 significant figures, it is 13.4. Moving on to part 2, find the equation of the line that's perpendicular to AB and passes through the point -1, 3. So AB here, you will need the original gradient. Okay, that is by taking 8 minus 2 over -5 minus 7. So you actually get 6 over 12. So it's -1 over 2 here. So be reminded that m ori times m nu equals to -1. This is the fixed formula. This m nu is actually the perpendicular line's gradient. So -1 divided by -1 over 2, you should be getting your results as 2. So at the moment, your result should be y equals to 2x plus c. And by substituting the point -1, 3 into it, you should get your answer as c equals to 5. So that's how you get to your results. So 2x plus 5 will be your final answer in part 2. In part 3, AB is one of the sides of a parallelogram in ABCD. Okay. Gradient of BC is 1. AB is one of the sides. Alright. So if I were to roughly sketch it out, it would look something like this. 7 and 2 over here. This is your point A. -5, 8. This is your point B. They say BC, gradient of it is 1. AB is one of the sides of the parallelogram. So parallelogram looks something like this over here. Okay, and they say BC is by going -2, -A, -B. So assuming point C is actually x, y. Let's run some calculation first based on the limited information that were given to us. Okay, I first assume that my C is actually xy and my B's point is -5, 8. So 8 minus y, -5 minus x equals to 1. So with this out of the way, you should be getting x minus y equals to -13. Okay, this is by shifting everything, and I got my first equation. And the other thing is that I can use this to run my calculation of distance. So you can actually take a x minus -5. Okay. Remember to square it, adding up with y minus 8 and square it equals to square root 8. Okay, so with this, you should be able to get your x plus 5 square plus y minus 8 square equals to 8, because both sides of the square root will be cancelled off. And this is what I gotten at the moment. So there's no choice. We're gonna do our calculation manually. So x value will be y minus 13. Okay, so when I substitute it in, y minus 13 plus 5 bracket square plus y minus 8 square equals to 8. So I got 2 of it, of the same thing. So y minus 8 square equals to 8. Then it equals to 4. And when you expand it out, So at the moment, I gotten this as my results. The square, I get rid of it by putting square root to the 4, then I get plus minus 2, and I gotten two temporary results, which is y equals to 10 and y equals to 6. And for our x, if it's when y equals to 10, you will get your results as negative 3, and when your y is 6, you will get your x results as, so you get your x as negative 7. So with this, you now have to analyze, okay, which of the point is more suitable. We got it's either negative 3, 10 or negative 7, 6. So for this, you actually have to look at the first statement that they gave us. B to C is actually negative A and negative B, which basically indicates that it is going down to here. B to C is actually going this side because changes in x is negative, means it's shifting to the left, and negative B represent changes in y, which indicates it is shifting downwards. So over here, the only things that fulfill the requirement will be our negative 7 and 6. So this will actually be our point C, located at negative 7 and 6. So they want us to find our coordinates D. So with this information, I know that it will look something like this already. Okay, and things to take note is that the translation B to C will be the same as A to D. So if you're able to find the translation of B to C, you should be able to trace your D's coordinates. So in our case, since this is what I have gotten, from negative 5 to negative 7, basically the translation will be 2. Negative 2 to be exact. And for 8 to become 6 is another negative 2. So for A to D, okay, D is somewhere around here. Our A coordinates was given as 7, 2. So after the translation of negative 2, negative 2, I should be arriving at 5, 0. So my coordinates of D should be 5, 0. So this is what I would write. Coordinates D equals to 7, 2 plus negative 2, negative 2. Which translates into 5, 0. And that's pretty much it. For this last part, however, you might have to pause my video and pull it back to check the full workings here. The only thing that I did differently is to assume that my point C's coordinate is xy, so that it helps me to identify the equation here. And also one more thing for your reference, this BC here is actually involving Pythagoras theorem. Okay, it's to calculate the slanted slide. So for what I did here, it's somewhat similar to your length formula actually. Okay, so these are the additional information that you need to know. So that's pretty much it. So for question 12 part 3, your final results will be 5, 0. So I hope you find this video helpful. If you have question or whatever that you're struggling, feel free to leave it in the comment and I will reply to you as soon as possible. So thank you for watching. Bye.